Hello and welcome to Spectrum TV News, a recap of major stories within the week. I am Frank Zizadet, coming to you live from Iyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government OK's pay rise for civil servants awaits President Buhari's approval. Akwa Ibom State Governor Dom Emmanuel constitutes committee to ensure smooth national population census in the state. Plus, Pope Francis presides over Palm Sunday after hospital stay. We will bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. We begin our recap news with a report that the Ministry of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngea, has revealed that the federal government has approved a pay raise for civil servants in the country. Ngea made this known in an interview with newsmen within the course of the week. The minister said the salary increment became important in view of the current economic reality of the country. However, noting that President Buhari is yet to approve the percentage used for the increment. According to him, the pay raise was already included in the 2023 budget and took effect from January 1st, 2023. In the meantime, the federal government has blamed powerful interest for the massive deforestation in states where lumberjacks fell trees for the commercial production of charcoal. It said the activities of these interests were against the federal government's target to plant 25 million trees by 2030 under the afforestation policy of the Buhari administration. Minister of Environment Mohammed Abdullahi disclosed this to State House correspondent during the 69th session of the ministerial media briefing organized by the Presidential Communications Team at the Aso Rock Villa, Abuja. He revealed that efforts to contain the menace and save the environment had suffered resistance from states who argued that the trees were not under the purview of the federal government. Meanwhile, the federal government is set to create a portal with a view to engaging, re-engineering and reactivating capacity of older persons who wish to continue offering services after retirement. The Director General of National Senior Citizen Center (NSCC), Dr. M.M. Omokoro, said this is a collaborative meeting with relevant government agencies and stakeholders on service level in Abuja. Omokoro said the intervention is in realization of the huge potential in the older persons that could be tapped into national development. According to him, the portal would be operational latest by April. On petroleum matters, the federal government has raised the alarm over the rising cases of deadly incidents in filling stations, depots, and by tankers drivers, which had claimed about 633 lives in less than 4 years. It vowed to sanction culpable oil marketers operating in the downstream sector over the poor management of health, safety, and environment, particularly when transporting and offloading petroleum products. A presentation by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority at a meeting with petroleum product transporters and retailers in Abuja, indicated that a total of 633 fatalities were recorded in the downstream oil sector in 2018, 2021, and 2022 to date. Although the presentation did not capture the figures for 2019 and 2020, it indicated that the fatalities were caused by 388 incidents. And elsewhere, the federal government has rolled out its enhanced e-passport as well as unveiled a new passport production center and front office in the Ilesa, Osun State. At the launch, the Minister of Interior, Rava Regbesala, stated that the production and front office facilities would make it easier for more travelers to get their Nigerian international passports. He said the facilities in Ilesha would join others in Lagos, Ibadan, Enugu, Katsina, Zaria, Daura, as well as Nigerian foreign missions in countries such as the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada, among others, where the enhanced e-passport system has been rolled out recently. In a statement, Regbesala noted that the Nigerian Immigration Service has continued to make remarkable contributions to the overall service delivery and accomplishment of the mandate of the Ministry of Interior, which he has supervised in 4 years. In another development, the federal government has inaugurated the boards of agencies and institutes under the Federal Ministry of Environment (FME) less than 2 months to the expiration of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. In his address at the inauguration ceremony in Abuja, the Minister of Environment, Mohammed Abdullahi, who inaugurated the board, said they would support in ensuring environmental protection and natural resources conservation for sustainable development in Nigeria. He said it was the mandate of the FME to secure a quality environment conducive for good health and well-being of citizens, promote sustainable use of natural resources, restore and maintain the ecosystem, and preserve biodiversity. Meanwhile, the agencies and institutes with the new boards includes the Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, Ibadan, National Oil Spill Detection and Research Agency, National Environment Standards Regulatory Enforcement Agency, amongst others. From the Red Chambers, the National Assembly has passed the Federal Audit Service Bill, which prescribes, among others, a 5-year jail term for any accounting officer who prevents the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation from accessing the account books. The Senate concurred with the House of Representatives, which had earlier passed the proposed legislation. The Senate leader, Ibrahim Gobier, led the debate for the concurrence, which the Red Chamber approved after dissolving to the Committee of the Whole. The chairman, Senate Public Accounts Committee, Senator Matthew Orugide, told journalists that the bill, which was passed in the 8th Senate, seeks to strengthen the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation. Orugide added that the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation is independent of the executive arm of government. Still on legislative matters, the National Assembly Conference Committee, set up by both Senate and the House of Representatives, to harmonize the bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Peace Corps, has adopted a harmonized uniform position, thereby clearing course for transmission of the bill to President Muhammadu Buhari for assent. The harmonized report of the Conference Committee, which was laid and adopted by the House of Representatives within the course of the week, showed that the conference adopted the version of the bill as passed in terms of Clause 38, subsection 2. Meanwhile, highlight of the adopted reports is on Clause 38, subsection 1 of the version passed by the Senate, which is in conflict with the version passed by the House of Representatives as contained on the Clause 38, subsection 1. Moved to the judiciary, where Supreme Court has dismissed an appeal filed by a former Minister of State for Education, Professor Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, seeking to void the participation of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress APC and Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party PDP in the February 25 presidential elections. In a judgment within the course of the week, a 5-member of the Apex Court held that the appeal by Nwajuba and a group, the Rights for All International RAI, was statute barred and has become academic. Justice John Okoro, who presided over the panel, dismissed the appeal after appellant's lawyer applied to withdraw it. The appellants had, among others, urged the Supreme Court to void the primaries from which Tinubu and Abubakar emerged as their party's candidates on grounds of alleged corruption. Still from the judiciary, Supreme Court within the week in Abuja nullified the purported participation of the All Progressives Congress APC in the February 25 senatorial election in Gombe South Senatorial District of Gombe State. The Apex Court kicked out APC and its purported candidate Joshua Lidani out of the senatorial contest on the ground that the party failed to conduct a primary election known to law for the purpose of candidate nomination. Delivering judgment in an appeal brought before it by the APC, the Supreme Court held that the party murdered internal democracy in the ways and manners its primary elections for Gombe South senatorial candidate nomination was conducted. In the meantime, a magistrate court sitting in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, has sentenced 2 journalists to 5 months imprisonment or a fine of 100,000 naira each. The 2 journalists, Gidado Shaib and Alfred Oluyemi, were sentenced on 2-count charge of conspiracy and defamation of character based on a petition filed by Hillcrest Agro Allied Industries Limited, Amberi Village in Kwara State. The duo editor and correspondent of News Digest, an online news medium. Senior Magistrate A.S. Mohammed stated that the ruling on the case was in connection with his reflection on the provisions of Criminal Justice Law 2018, as well as Section 417, subsection 2D of the Kwara State Administration of Criminal Justice Law 2018. Meanwhile, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has granted bail to a journalist and publisher of an online news outlet, Cross River Watch, Agba Jalingo, to the tune of 500,000 naira with one shorty in like sum. Jalingo was accused of defaming Elizabeth Ayade, wife of Frank Ayade, who is the brother of Cross River State Governor Ben Ayade. In a charge, he was accused of publishing an article that was considered an insult to Ayade's personality, which is punishable under Section 24, subsection 1B of the Cyber Crimes Prohibition Prevention Act 2015. According to reports, Jalingo was specifically accused of engaging in a false publication that was intended to annoy, ill will, and insult to the person of Ayade. In another development, Labour Party LP says it is not part of any insurrection plan. Recall that the Department of State Services, DSS, had on Wednesday raised an alarm over a plot to scuttle the democratic process and install an interim government. The agency's spokesman, Peter Afunaya, in a statement vowed that the secret police will use all arsenals at its disposal to frustrate such a plot. He added that the secret police has identified some key players in the plan, but in his reaction to the development, the Labour Party spokesman, Yunusa Tanko, said the party is not plotting any insurrection, describing the development as a conspiracy against the state. Still in politics, the leadership of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, which has quashed the suspension order on former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF, Pius Anyim, former Governor Ayafayese Ekiti, and Ibrahim Shima Katsina, also had their suspension lifted. Benue Governor Samuel Otum, who was referred to the party's disciplinary committee, has also had the summons reversed. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police IGP Alkali Baba Usman, within the course of the week, declined to produce before a federal high court in Abuja a Cameroonian citizen, Ambo Sangaya Enyang, who was allegedly hauled into detention for over 400 days. The Cameroonian national was said to have been detained for close to 2 years without bail. He was alleged to have been in possession of ammunition illegally found in his house. At the proceedings within the week, the detainee was not produced in court by the IGP in spite of a subsisting court order. Meanwhile, his counsel, Danshita Shitu, complained bitterly to the court that the order given to produce Enyang was not respected and obeyed by the police chief. However, in counter-argument, counsel to the IGP, Assistant Superintendent of Police Joseph Udo, informed the court that the detained Cameroon national was not brought to court due to the late arrival of the court order. Away from that, the Federal Capital Territory Administration (FCTA) has commenced swift inventory and demolition of structures and waterways. This is part of the administration's proactive measures to mitigate flooding in the nation's capital city. The administration's director, Department of Development Control, Mukhtar Galadima, said this during an inspection. He inspected the demolition of perimeter fence and other obstructing structures on a floodplain in Mabushi district. Galadima said a directive was given to sector monitors to forward their list of developments and floodplains so as to remove them when necessary before the rains come fully. Back here, the Akwa Ibom State government has approved the taking over 15 community and missionary secondary schools across the state. The State Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Comrade Nyemebong, disclosed this while briefing Government House correspondent at the end of the State Executive Council meeting. According to the Commissioner, this brings the total number of schools taken over by these administrations so far to 34. Nyemebong said the council meeting frowned at the disruption of free flow of traffic caused by illegal trading on the roads and environment around Itam Junction and Ikoroku-Ikono flyover and directed the Ministry of Environment and Solid Minerals to immediately take action to ensure free flow of traffic at the affected areas. The Commissioner also said that the council approved the 2022 promotion of civil servants effective April 1st, 2023. Government House correspondent General reports that Nyemebong said the governor charged members of the State Executive Council to fast-track the completion of all the remaining projects under their supervision to achieve results before the end of his administration.
The government approved the takeover of 15 community schools across the state. This brings to the total number of 34, the number of schools taken over by this administration. The schools are Community Christian High School, Ikoroku Songukanafun, Ibaka Community Secondary School, Ibaka Town, Mbo, Seat of Wisdom Comprehensive Secondary School, Ibianga, Orogonam, Community Secondary School in Ibespo Sultan, Migrant Community School, Ibakangset in Sretai Local Government Area, All Saints Secondary School, Ibikwe Oran in Oran Local Government Area, Etda Secondary School in Oborokara Local Government Area, Abat High School, Abat Town in Etimekpo, Community Comprehensive School in Obuatai in Sribom, Christian Community Secondary School, Okoyo in Ukanafun, The Apostolic Church High School, Esrodwa in Eket, Ibionibom Community Secondary School, Ibiakwe Ikbedop in Ibionibom Local Government Area, Community Primary School at Tabrikang in Eastern Obolo, Itak People's High School, Itak in Ikono, and Secondary School Okwiboku in Itu Local Government Area. Council also granted approval for the 2022 promotion of civil servants, effective date being the 1st of April 2023.
In the meantime, Akwa Ibom State Governor Odom Emmanuel has constituted a committee to interface with the National Population Commission to ensure smooth national population census. in the state. Governor Emmanuel announced the constitution of the committee at the State Executive Council meeting at Government House, Uyo. The committee has a secretary to the state government, Dr. Emmanuel Akuan, as chairman, with commissioners for local government and chieftaincy affairs, economic development, information and strategy, human affairs and social development, and that of rural development and cooperatives, as well as a special advisor, Bureau of Political and Social Reorientation, as members of the committee. The governor charged all the State Executive Council members to take the census exercise very seriously. And while the national population census has been fixed for May this year.
ISCO also set up immediately a committee to interface with the National Population Commission on the census which is about to be undertaken. That committee is headed by the Secretary of Government, has as members the commissioners for local government and chieftaincy affairs, economic development, information and strategy, women affairs and social development, rural development and cooperatives, and the Honorable Special Advisor for political and social reorientation.
In another development, farmers in the Akwa State capital have expressed excitement as rainy season sets in. According to them, the soil will be moisturized and is able to retain more water. Speaking with our correspondent, Esther Otoyo, they identify the different crops they plant during this season and methods used to protect them from insect bites. They also disclose that excess water in the soil can affect their crops negatively rather than growing them.
We usually water the crops, but during the rainy season, the soil retains enough water. We buy some chemicals from the markets to use as insecticides. In my farm, I plant crops such as cassava, corn, water yams, among others. Our farm is always beautiful during the rainy season, and we also provide water passage for excess water. For insecticide, we usually use arches to prevent insect bites.
Still to come in the news. UN says Nigeria will save $1.3 billion annually by eliminating fake products. To stay with us.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories on how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by Muslim, our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Many thanks for staying with us, and now to the rest of the news stories. We move to Africa, where Sudan's military leaders and the main pro-democracy network announced Saturday the delay the signing of the political agreement. The deal was aimed at ushering in a civilian government following the October 2021 military coup. The signing was initially scheduled for later that day. A spokesman for the pro-democracy bloc explained the apparent deadlock was as a result of the only major point that was left unresolved, which is related to a technical case regarding the military and security reform. Both parties then met in Khartoum with representatives from the African Union, the United Nations, and the Intergovernmental Authority on Development in Eastern Africa, who have facilitated talks between the military and pro-democracy groups. Meanwhile, the Senegalese opposition has announced on Friday they will postpone risky demonstration scheduled for Monday, April 3rd, throughout the trial of politician Ousmane Sonko. This is as tensions are high in the country. Citing broad consultations and contacts with senior members of the defense and security forces, the opposition announced the news in a statement. Protests in support of the opposition leader have been marred by clashes between law enforcement and demonstrators. Meanwhile, Sonko and his supporters have maintained his legal troubles are part of an effort by President Macky Sall's government to derail his candidacy in the 2024 presidential race. The ruling party accuses the passive leader of wanting to paralyze the country and of using popular protests to escape justice. Away from that, the after effect of Cyclone Freddy has continued to affect Mozambicans. The cyclone displaced some 184,000 people as the country faces its worst cholera outbreak in more than a decade. Over 1 million people are facing the possibility of contracting cholera, polio, or COVID-19. According to the World Health Organization, this is World Health Organization's representative for Mozambique, who spoke from Maputo, said while the cholera outbreaks regularly occurred in Mozambique between October and April of every year, with more than 21,000 cases currently and 95 deaths, added that this is the largest outbreak in the last 20 years. Still in Africa, Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga has denounced on Friday an alleged assassination attempt on him during Thursday's anti-government demonstrations in Nairobi. Odinga said his car was shot at multiple times while the driver was around the capital rallying protesters. He shot journalists dead of his armored vehicle, which he said were left by bullets. 2 escort cars also had their rear windscreen shattered. Inside the vehicles, the strong smell of tear gas was still present. Odinga said he had instructed his lawyers to proceed to court over the incident. The 78-year-old longtime candidate for president is one of the leading figures behind anti-government demonstrators. He insisted the protests will only stop after the government lowers the cost of basic food items and allow access to the 2022 election results from the Electoral Commission's main computers. The opposition is blaming President William Ruto for the rising cost of living and alleges he illegally manipulated his elections in last year's polls. Although the Supreme Court has upheld the validity of the election result, meanwhile, civil society groups that include Amnesty Kenya and the Kenyan Human Rights Commission have expressed concerns over the abuse of human rights by the police during the protest and urged police to uphold their service to humanity.
When we were traveling, they started firing. You could hear them shooting. I was seated on the other side of the car, and we had shots. Later on, I saw these shots. You can count them. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In fact, there are 10. There are 10 shots that were fired, and you could see that these were aimed at a passenger sitting on the other side where I was sitting. You could hear gunshots, and we thought they were firing in the air. But then we heard now the car being hit several times. That is when I decided to take cover and lie on the seat. This was planned from the very top of this government. It was very, very top. I don't think that ordinary police officers could aim to come and shoot to assassinate politicians without being commanded.
Still in Kenya, commodity prices has continued to drain the pockets of Kenyans. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics unveiled on Friday the annual inflation rate in March at 9.2%. The overall year-on-year inflation rate as measured by the Consumer Price Index (CPI) remained unchanged from February. Report says housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels index however increased by 0.6% between February 2023 and March 2023. The transport index also went up by 0.3% during that period. Kenyans are suffering from surging prices as well as a sharp drop in the local shilling against the US dollars and a drought that has left millions unable to properly feed themselves. During the election campaign, the president portrayed himself as champion of the downtrodden and vowed to improve the lot of ordinary Kenyans. Hundreds have taken to the streets in recent days as they wanted him to act by his words. The opposition launched a campaign of nationwide protest that kicked off on March 20th. In the meantime, the United States will continue to support and expand agricultural works in Africa. This is as the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris pledges U.S. support for the African agriculture. Kamala Harris said through the works, U.S. will help farmers decide where to plant their crops, when to plant their crops, how to predict the upcoming growing season in a way to plant crops that are resilient to or can adapt to whatever the climate might be predicted to be. If Africa has contributed far less to overall greenhouse gas emissions, then economically richer corners of the world needs to do more. Kamala Harris says they need to bear the brunt of the climate crisis. The U.S. Vice President will return to Washington on Sunday after a week-long trip to 3 African countries.
This trip, you are correct, Bruno, has been about highlighting innovation, highlighting the ingenuity that exists on this continent that is benefiting the world and can be a model, in particular about smart farming, smart agriculture. You talk about being climate proof, which is, we talk sometimes about weather proof. Bruno talks about climate proof, which is in essence what we refer to as resilience. What we must do to adapt to these changing climate conditions. And so the work here is an example of what we want to encourage more. The United States will continue to support and expand this work. Some examples of the work we are doing to that end here on the continent includes helping to improve climate modeling, weather forecast, and to build new weather stations. We, through that work, know that we can then help farmers decide where to plant their crops, when to plant their crops, how to predict the upcoming growing season in a way they plant crops that are resilient to or can adapt to whatever that climate might be predicted to be.
Meanwhile, France's heart-left CGT union has elected its first woman leader, Sophie Binet. Binet, 41, was elected Secretary General as a surprise compromise candidate after a long night of deliberations, coming ahead of Maria Bouchon, who was backed by outgoing leader Philippe Martinez and Céline Veseletti, who was supported by more hardline factions of the union. The CGT press service said it could not confirm Binet's election as long as its members had not been informed. Binet, a former school supervisor, is the head of CGT's UGICT division, representing engineers, managers, and technical staff, and was responsible for equality issues in the union's executive committee. On the foreign scene, King Charles III called Russia's war in Ukraine a threat to Europe's democratic values in the first speech made by a monarch at the German parliament, but said allies like Germany and Britain can draw courage from their unity. Speaking mostly in German through the 30-minute speech, Charles underlined that the scourge of war is back in Europe, that the war of aggression against Ukraine has brought unimaginable suffering on so many innocent people. He added that the security of Europe and democratic values are under threat. Charles is on his first state visit since ascending the throne following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, last year, and his choice to travel to Germany has been viewed as a bid to build bridges following Brexit. In Germany, the themes of reconciliation and a future ahead forged by common values have featured prominently in his speeches. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron swung to rally citizens around a plan to save water and stressed that protests will not stop reforms in a nod to both climate change and an unpopular pension bill. According to reports, the water-saving plan includes 50 measures such as fixing leaking pipes, adapting the way farmers and the nuclear industry use water, and making water more expensive for those who use a lot. This was the president's first major policy announcement and public outing after weeks focused on pension bill, which has triggered fierce protests across the country. With the water plan, Macron and his government are looking to move to other topics. In the meantime, a Moscow court ruled that a U.S. journalist for the Wall Street Journal newspaper should be detained for nearly 2 months on suspicion of spying for Washington, the most serious move against a foreign journalist since Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia's FSB security service said earlier it had opened a criminal case against U.S. national Ivan Geskovich on suspicion of espionage, and the Kremlin said he had been caught red-handed. Geskovich, who has been working for the journal for just over a year, told the court he was not guilty. His employer said the case against him, believed to be the first criminal case for espionage against a foreign journalist in post-Soviet Russia, was based on a false allegation. Espionage under Russia law can be punishable by up to 20 years in jail. And while the case will worsen already the relations between Russia and the United States, which is Ukraine's biggest military backer, and has imposed sanctions on Moscow to try to persuade it to withdraw its troops. On the foreign scene, the United Arab Emirates president, whose name is eldest son, is the crown prince of the Abu Dhabi, making him the oil-rich Gulf monarchy's likely next leader and cementing his family's hold on power. Recall that it was part of the biggest political shakeup since Sheikh Mohammed, sometime known as MBZ, and the United Arab Emirates' longtime de facto ruler, became president last May, following the death of his half-brother Sheikh Khalifa, who had been sidelined by ill health for years. MBZ's brother Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed, the owner of Manchester City Football Club, became vice president, joining Dubai's ruler and United Arab Emirates Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum in the role. Meanwhile, 2 other brothers of the president, Tamim bin Zayed, the United Arab Emirates National Security Advisor and chairman of the ADQ Sovereign Wealth Fund, and Hazza bin Zayed, became deputy rulers of Abu Dhabi, which controls the bulk of the country's oil reserves. Meanwhile, Pope Francis presided over Mass in St. Peter's Square today, Sunday, as he kicked off events leading to Easter just a day after leaving hospital following a bout of bronchitis. The 86-year-old's admittance to hospital on Wednesday with breathing difficulties sparked concerns he may not be well enough to attend a series of rites in the most important week in the Christian calendar. But Francis had promised to be present, and he waved briefly to some 30,000 people as he rode in his Pope mobile through the square, which was adorned with over 35,000 plants and flowers. And while Christians the world over, including Nigerians, today celebrated Palm Sunday as they get ready to celebrate the Easter period. And still to come in the news, Joshua breaks London jinx, beat Franklin. To stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us, and now to the rest of the news bulletin. We move to business news, where the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress have given conditional support for the removal of fuel subsidy. The two Labour bodies said they would only allow the removal of fuel subsidy if the incoming administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu takes steps towards the repair and revitalization of government refineries across the country and allow modular refineries to work. They have vowed that failure to bring up the nation's refineries, they would oppose the subsidy removal and mobilize workers to protest against the decision. Recall that President Muhammadu Buhari had stated that the subsidy of premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, would be removed before the end of his tenure on May 29, 2023. Meanwhile, the U.S. says Nigeria will save about $1.3 billion annually by stopping the use of air conditioners and refrigerators with energy efficiency ratios that are below globally acceptable minimum energy performance standards. The United Nations Environment Programme has said this in its latest report on Project Overview of Scaling Up Energy Efficient and Climate-Friendly Cooling in Nigeria's nationally determined contributions provision. In the report, the Program Management Officer, UNEP, Brian Holuj, explained that the attainment of Nigeria's NDC with respect to energy efficiency would impact greatly on the country's energy savings. The preliminary analysis of potential impact of room air conditioners with respect to the MEPs in Nigeria, the report forecast indicated that by 2040, electricity consumption by ACs would increase by 590%. Meanwhile, Nigeria has been selected to host the 4th edition of the Inter-Africa Trade Fair in 2025. The Inter-African Trade Fair is a unique and valuable platform for businesses to access an integrated African market of over 1.3 billion people with a gross domestic product of over $3.5 trillion created under the African Continental Free Trade Area. This is revealed by the Minister of Trade and Investment, Niyi Adebayo, at the groundbreaking ceremony of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, ultra-modern shopping center sited on 10 hectares of land along Airport Road, Abuja. He said the country's request was granted following a successful submission of the bid to host the event, where African buyers and sellers meet to explore business opportunities. In sports, Anthony Joshua has returned to winning ways with a unanimous points victory over Jermaine Franklin at London's O2 Arena. The 32-year-old British heavyweight controlled the contest against the durable American, but it was not the explosive early finish many expected. Two judges scored it 117 to 111 and 118 to 111 to Joshua. It is Joshua's first win in more than 2 years, having lost consecutive bouts to Alexandra Usyk. Joshua has now won 25 fights with 22 stoppages and lost 3 since turning professional in 2013. Meanwhile, it is a second defeat for Franklin, who is 29 years old, having lost to Briton Dillian White in November. Still in sports, Under pressure, Chelsea manager Graham Potter has taken responsibility after a 2-0 loss at home to Aston Villa on Saturday sent the Blues into the bottom half of the Premier League tables. Olive Watkins gave Villa an early lead before a superb strike by John McGuinn, fresh from Stirling in Scotland's shock Euro 2024 win over Spain, made it 2-0 in the 56th minute, but Chelsea booed off the field by their own fans. Come full-time at Stamford Bridge, the defeat saw Villa leapfrog the host into 9th place, with the result leaving Chelsea for so long used to being title contenders in 11th, below local rivals Fulham and 5 points off any European spot. Meanwhile, Aqua United will look to maintain their chase for a top 3 finish when they host Enyimba at the Godswill Akpabio Stadium today. But teams head into these fixtures on the back of respective draws from their last game, while their first leg fixture March Day 2 in Aba ended in a goalless draw. Aqua United followed up their second half of the season opening win against 32nd with a 1-1 draw against Bendel Insurance. Enyimba are yet to win a game since the restart of the league, having been forced to 2 consecutive 1-1 draws at home by Insurance and Nasarawa United, bringing their character to question in the pace for the top 3 in the top Group A. Although the result in Benin was shy of the target of their coach Deji Ayeni, but he was still satisfied with the result, stressing that the character must remain ahead of the elephant's visit. On entertainment, Netflix UNESCO is seeking mainstream breakthrough for African filmmaking using a revenge thriller where a mother turns into a ruthless vigilante, tracking down and drowning a soldier who killed her baby in an explosive of violence and jubilation. The movie, Caterer of the Punishment Island, directed by Ugandan Lukman Ali, is among 6 short films co-financed on the continent by the American platform and the UN agency. Lukman Ali said the film is a worthy representative of a new generation of African filmmakers who grew up on a diet of mainstream cinema and want to be seen by as many people as possible, scoring genre films. The 32-year-old director said he embraced cinema as a form of escapism and a way to forget the poverty surrounding him as he was growing up. Meanwhile, the 2023 lineup for Lollapalooza Chicago, one of the largest music festivals in the USA, has been announced. Nigerian superstar Rema and Tems alongside singing sensation Samadina will be performing at the 2022 Lollapalooza concert. According to reports after dazzling fans with their performances at the 2023 NBA All-Star Game, the duo are joined by talented singer Samadina. Meanwhile, the 4-day event, which runs from August 3rd to August 6th, will be headlined by some of the biggest names in music, including Kendrick Lamar, Billie Eilish, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Odessa, among others. The festival will take place in Grand Park, Chicago. Still on entertainment, Nigerian megastar Davido has released the track list for his upcoming album Timeless, which was released on March 31st. The track list consists of 17 tracks with features from Nigerian and international artists, including Faith, Asake, and Kevman. For international collaborations, there is British-Nigerian rapper Skepta, multi-Grammy winner Angelique Kidjo, South African singer Musa Keys, and Jamaican dancehall star Dexter Dabbs. Timeless is coming off the back of his 2022 release Stand Strong, which is not included in the album. And that's all we have for you this time. To ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You've been watching Spectrum Recap News, a recap of major stories within the week. I am Francis Adet, and thanks for watching. To have yourself a lovely day, and once again, a happy new month, and happy Palm Sunday.